Okay, so I am excited to have everyone here. Going to kick this off for anyone that is on the first time. We're kicking this off. This is free. We're going to do this the first Friday of every month, and mainly talking just different strategies around commercial real estate investing. All different strategies, all different types, and I'm anyone that has something to add to or questions. We can kind of get that. You know just whenever you have something, let us know. I do have a subject matter expert today that is going to talk some tax strategies and different stuff. That is the lovely Jacqueline up here, and I'm gonna let her kind of go over a lot of the just share some of her knowledge, share some of her wisdom, and if anyone has questions on that, we can kind of get to that. I like the group think. I like the group discussion, so that way anyone can kind of share. I ask that obviously everyone please be respectful of the group. Everyone be respectful of other people's opinions, and it's okay to disagree, but let's be respectful about that. And that's all I ask. So that we're all here for really everyone else. So I'm here to hopefully try to learn something from the other people in the group just as much as I hope as I can add value to this group as well. So without without anything else, let's go ahead and kick this off. Jacqueline, I will let you take it away, dear.
So I don't have like anything huge planned because I could talk tax all day. I'm pretty much a nerd. So I spent a little bit about me. I don't know how much you guys know or looked me up or whatever, but I spent 15 years as a certified public accountant working for the top 1%. What does that mean? That's like the top corporations and the top high net worth individuals. And so I have access to a lot of different financial statements, different ways people structured themselves, and different ways people did things. And to me, I went into tax to learn money, to learn accounting, and to learn taxes. Because in order to do taxes, you have to learn accounting. In order to do accounting, you have to understand money. And then I went one level up in tax, and I went into international tax planning. And just this will help you guys get a little bit of context as to why I'm probably made the transition over into commercial. I When you do international tax planning, you have to understand that every transaction has a tax. So every single movement in any organization globally, whether it's the military, whether it's any organization like Facebook, Apple, Google, Square, all the companies I work for, like Gap, Square, we had to make sure every transaction was tracked. And every tax, that was my job as the head of tax, every tax line was properly accounted for. And this is where everything gets extremely complicated, because when you look at accountants, they're like, oh, it all eliminates, it's between companies, it doesn't matter for book purposes. But for tax purposes, it really matters. And this is where I'm going to challenge you guys as you start to add legal entities into your organization. You really focus on like keeping everything separated and keeping everything between your legal entities not commingled. And that's a legal term which basically pierces the corporate veil. What does that mean? That means if you take money from one entity and you put it in another without a legal agreement, you officially pierce the corporate veil. And if anything happens between one or the other, they can come after both. And that's when you start to lose your legal protection. And then it's pointless and meaningless to have all these legal entities. So that's like step one of tax, is like I, as a gatekeeper of tax, have to make sure that all of the books and records have the proper legal like agreements and everything in place to make sure that nobody can sue or take one from the other, and be the gatekeeper of the books and making sure I'm tracking all those legal agreements. And that's things that a lot of people, when they're self-employed, they do it. They like, oh, it's a slush fund. I'll pay my personal bill out of here and my, other bill for another company out of this one. And it gets really messy really quickly. And it also, if you were going to get divorced, it also is one way that you could lose your business to someone getting divorced. So legal protection is like something really important in tax. And it's something that you really need to, it's a new year. So I think it's a good topic, Wes. Do some housekeeping, start separate credit cards for each business. Do what you got to do to isolate and separate everything. It's a new year, so start fresh. And then like on the commercial side, right? Like I think the reason I got in, I knew commercial was always going to be my end game. I met a little old lady when I was 15 at a real estate firm, and all this lady did was get bins and bins of mail. And I finally got the courage. She was British. She's kind of mean. So I finally got the gumption and the courage to ask her one day, like, hey, why do you keep getting so much, huge mail bins, and what are you doing? You're the only one. And she's like, oh, I'm just an agent for the rich people. Like, I don't really want to be a real estate agent. I'm really just a real estate agent for myself. She's like, I just own a bunch of apartment buildings and collect rent checks. Like, that's all I do. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. She's like, yeah, working is for the birds. And I was like, cool. So then as I got to know her a little bit more, and I kind of started talking to her more, and I carry her mail bins out for her deliberately to try and get time to like talk to her. And I realized very quickly the power of commercial real estate and financial freedom. And she gave me the advice to go and learn money, so that then once I understand money, I can do it myself. And I probably stayed in my CPA job just a smidgen too long. I probably got a little bit sidetracked with golden handcuffs, but that happens. And I finally took the leap in 2021 and left my corporate job and jumped all into real estate and made that transition, which was a very difficult transition. But I knew from the data and the facts and what I had seen in my past life that this is going to be an easy transition. It's just going to take 2 to 3 years. So I remember my first high net worth individual tax return. I was very upset. I was a first year staff. I think my salary my first year was $52,000. And I was doing this guy's tax return. I went into my superior's office and I was like, man, I have to be doing something wrong. There has to be something wrong, or I'm not understanding. Either way, I need to know. And he was like, oh, that's so great. Like, thanks for coming to me. Most people would have just handed me a jacked up tax return and walked away and done the next one. And I was like, no, I want to learn this, because if I'm right, I really want to learn this. And he's like, why? I was like, well, this fool made $30 million and paid $1,000 in taxes. Like, how does this work? Like, I pay more than that a month in taxes, and I'm irritated if this is true. And I very quickly learned the power of commercial real estate, right? Like, they had done a cost seg report on a building that they were at 98%. And when I saw those numbers and I put the numbers, I put all of the assets into our depreciation calculator, and it had spit out these numbers and loaded it into the tax return. So I couldn't trace everything exactly, which is why I wasn't understanding. And when my superior, my senior manager, broke it down for me, I was like, well, damn, this guy literally paid like hundreds of millions of dollars for this building, and he paid like $7,000 for it after cost seg. And I was like, that's kind of demoralizing. And my boss started laughing, and he was like, yes, now you're understanding. And I was like, well, this sucks. I'm clearly in the wrong field, right? Like, this is really not cool. Like, it's cool, but it's not cool. Like, one day it'll be cool for me, but it's not cool in general. And we started talking about how, making sure that you have all of your ducks in a row, and making sure that you when you're looking at the deal flow, especially from a financial modeling perspective, understanding the tax deductions up front, right? There's 4 levels of tax depreciation on commercial real estate. You don't get that in residential. So how do you fix that on residential, right? You can buy a package portfolio that now qualifies for commercial. There's ways that you can go about it, but in the end of the day, it is a very powerful tool, and it is something that I have personally witnessed several times, whether it's funds, even Gap, retail, guys, we'd cost seg. We would go and open a new store, and we would be cost segging the minute it went placed in service. So it's something that, every large corporation, every high net worth individual uses and leverages. And it's something that's very powerful, because if you can pay the cash out year one, take back the majority of the money, or have tax loss carry forwards, which you can monetize within 2 to 3 years, your cash on cash is anywhere from 100%, 98%, we'll call it, all the way to like maybe, 33%. And that's a pretty good investment. in accounting and finance, we always talk about the rule of 72 and how quickly you want to be able to double your money and how you need to keep your money working on a hamster wheel and reinvest it as quickly as possible, the same amount of money. And that's really like the name of the game, that all I did for really rich people was take their money, park it in a massive life insurance policy. So we'll use one of my IPO babies. He was 26 when he IPO'd his company. And we did the whole financial structuring for the IPO. We did all the road shows. We did all the auditing and consulting on it. And he made $33 billion. And he was like, well, I don't want it all in my hands. I want to have, deferred tax. So tax-free retirement. I want to have this. I want to have that. So we went in and did the full international planning because he wasn't a US citizen. He was just in the US IPOing his company. And when you look at it from that perspective, we were very quickly and easily able to take the money that he made in his day business, reinvest it into an executive bonus plan, which if he had put money and parked money away for 10 years, which we put the money away so he couldn't access it, so he had the premiums for 10 years, then now he had an infinite banking concept. And that executive bonus plan was deductible. And so he was able to take a massive tax bill. I think the person who's paid the largest tax bill to date is Mark Zuckerberg on his IPO. So these are very highly taxed. But we were able to take all of that money, shelter it through real estate investing and parking it in executive bonus plans, which are glorified life insurance policies for corporations. So they have different economics than an individual indexed universal life insurance policy. And we were able to park all that money away, and then he could take that and go buy a bunch of other real estate, and all of that was growing tax-free. So he had money growing, and all of it was tax deductible. And we were recycling the same lump sum of money into, 7 cash flow income streams. And that's really when you start to look at yourself, particularly as like a commercial investor or a fund investor. That's when you start to really put yourself on a hamster wheel of an upcycle so that you are not stuck paying taxes, which, I don't know, we were in California, it's like 40%. You're not going to see that money when you're in the top tax brackets. It's never going to come back to you. So you aren't going to be able to have control over that money. So the sooner you take control of it and do what you want with it through your own charity, through your own life insurance policy, through your own, commercial real estate, that's when you really can start to take the power back and build yourself a retirement in 4 to 5 years very quickly if you have the right amount of cash flow. So this is our way of how we would consult people and protect them so that, he's 26, like most 26-year-olds when they IPO, they have a huge party, they go and buy a yacht, they have boats and hoe parties and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? They go on a rampage and then they're like, okay, I've, burned off 2 years of my energy and now I'm ready to like get back in the saddle. And they usually go VC angel investor route. But there is a period of time where a lot of people, like 9 out of 10 millionaires, go bankrupt. That is a real statistic. It really happens. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen billionaires lose all their money. Now, when you're a billionaire, it's a lot easier to make back that money because you understand how to make money. But it's something that you really need to like think about as you're building your legacy and you're building your businesses and you're building cash flow that sometimes may not be sheltered by taxes. And that's the power of real estate. You really have a huge amount of cash flow with very little tax. And so that puts you in a ability to reinvest that money. But how do you reinvest it with the most amount of cash flow, income streams? And that's where, the power of the reason I went into my field was because I was like, man, I want to be retired at a very young age and I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And now all my CPA friends are like, girl, like, where are you in the world? And I'm like doing what I want to do, like when I want to do it, and I'm calling a little bit more of the shots now that I'm self-employed, and I really left corporate America to help other people get the knowledge of what the rich people do, because it really is just education. It has nothing to do with money to put these structures together. Yeah, they cost money, but if you have money that you're paying in taxes, reinvest that money into yourself and into your tax structure so that you can, effectively reinvest that money and get it in a situation where you're building, the up cycle versus most Americans are on a down cycle. And that's really, in my opinion, I think that's like the key to life is taking control of your money. And the sooner you control your money, the sooner you're free. And the sooner, you can do what you want. And so that's, those are basically the theoretical concepts that the very top 1% apply and they use and they leverage. I think it was something like 98% of millionaires, like multimillionaires, have life insurance policies. Something like 22% have life insurance policies that are self-employed. And they're called life insurance policies because you can use them while you're alive. But most people who aren't educated think of life insurance as a death benefit. Like, oh, I want to make sure I leave money to my family. Like, no, that's the poor man's mentality. And that's the poor man's way of looking at things. I think the beauty of being around a lot of really rich people is I know the get rich quick scheme doesn't exist. I also know that it takes 5 years, a good 5 years for any good investment to get you where you want to be. So, I think in America, we have this trained marketing belief that like everything should happen yesterday. And that's just not reality. That's just not life when it comes to money. And the more we think a little bit more midterm, not necessarily long term, but like midterm, like if we could put goals that are 3 to 7 year plans, like we do our commercial properties, the sooner you put those into your own personal life, the sooner you're going to see the compounding effects of it. And you'll see it in your tax return. You'll see it in, I have clients now that, my only goal is to get them retired. They have the money. They just need that money invested. They need the cash flow so they can leave their day jobs. And then they want to make sure that, we, because they're leaning on me to help them, that we can get them in a place where, in the next 5 years, if they don't want to work, they don't have to. But, again, these people are looking 5 years out. They're not looking yesterday. And that's really powerful, and that's something that if I could give you guys one tip, is build that 5-year plan and have an actionable plan to it, because that's when you really start to compound your money and you really start to put yourself in an upcycle, depending on how you build and how you do your property investments and how you look at things. So that's kind of like my 10 cents on like what the rich do and how they do it and why they do what they do and how they're able to get themselves so much further ahead. Yesterday, Wes and I were on a phone call with a gentleman that I met through friends. And, he was like, yeah, my family office, and it's his family that has the office, his family office, literally. He was like, my family office. And, when you listen to the way he talks, they're looking to compound their money fast. They spoke very specifically, which is how rich people think. It's like, I want that no-brainer deal. I want that deal where we're going to be making millions in a year or two, not, 5 to 10 years. And they are out there. And in this recession, there will be more. And we want you to come to us and we're going to pay you more, because they understand the value of, one, having good lead flow. That's the hardest part in any business. 2, making a sale. And then 3, the last part is their ops. And I'm sure at some point, if Wes and I did enough deals with them and some of my other family office contacts, one day they're going to be like, hey, we'll just give you carte blanche and you guys can run it and operate it. I know that because I've worked with these people before, but you have to gain their trust. You have to show that you're worthy and credible for all of this. So it's one of these things, like rich people have a very specific way of operating and a very specific way of looking at money. They're not emotional about it at all. It does not define them because they have so much money. They can make more money. I have a crypto trader that I'm friends with, and he's flying into town because he wants to talk about commercial real estate because he wants to not have to trade for the rest of his life. But he makes one trade and he's clearing $482,000 in a day on one trade. This guy has more money than God, but he doesn't care. He's like, whatever, I want more money so that I can leave a legacy. I come from a very, strict family, and I want to prove, that I'm worthy of being part of their company. And many of these really rich families, you do have to earn it. Wes heard oh yeah, this kid's dad is getting ready to branch off in 2 years, right? And be able to do their own deals. It's a big deal in those families. Like they come from a lot of money, they come from a lot of expectations, and no one wants to be the family black sheep because those circles are tight. And they know if they're the black sheep that everything's going to kind of affect them. So that being said, I think like if you guys can learn, like 87% of millionaires are self-made. They don't come from money. And if you can change your mindset to be more into the how does a millionaire mindset work and how does all of that get them where they need to be, like if you believe you can or you can't, you're right. That's the Henry Ford quote, right? If you think you can't get there, you're right. Like my family thought I was batshit crazy telling them, yeah, I'm going to leave my CPA job by 40. And when I did it, they were like, damn, how did you do that? Right. But in the process, they literally thought I was clinical. Like, you can't do that. And I'm like, if I'm not following my own rules that I'm telling my clients, I failed. Like, I royally failed. And so these are the things that I think most people are limited by their own imagination and their own belief of like, what am I capable of? And that is something that like money is all mindset. It's all mindset. So many people get their first windfall of money and they're like, new car, new this, new that. And I'm like, I still drive my same car from 2013. And people are like, Ruby, you still have Ruby? And I'm like, I still got my girl. Like, I don't care. I'm like, I could care less about my car, like it doesn't define me. And I frankly don't care. I like my Lexus. It doesn't have any issues. I don't drive. You guys saw how many miles I drove a year. It'd be pathetic. I drive to real estate and that's about it. So, it's one of these things like there's keys and there's tricks, and taxes is one of the massive, massive tricks. And taxes are built for the wealthy, and taxes are built for real estate. We went through a massive tax reform in 2017 with Donald Trump, and they didn't touch taxes on real estate. Nobody affected that other than the cost seg, the 100% cost seg got phased out, which right now it's back on the Congress floor to not phase it out, going into the recession.
Everybody cross your fingers.
I know.
Really?
This is powerful, right? Like they're trying to shelter this because they know rich people are what are going to drive the economy in a recession. Rich people are the ones using cost seg. Corporations, if they can save corporations cash on their taxes, then they're going to keep more employees, supposedly. That's the belief.
But right there, anyone can use cost seg that is investing into commercial real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so all the strategies that Jacqueline's talking about that, and she had access to see how the ultra wealthy, the ultra rich use. When you start mimicking those at your level, you can start saving more, because it's not just about how much money you can make. It's also about how much money you can keep. And taxes is one of those biggest, line items. As you start making money, for a lot of us coming from a blue collar, trying to rise our way through up out of that and to, building our wealth, building our assets. You go from having one level of money problems of how am I going to pay my bills to once you start scaling up to, oh, now I got to worry about paying taxes. So it's just from one money problem to a different money problem. And if you start structuring things from the beginning, and even I think the first step is knowing. I think that's one thing that you covered is just knowing about these different strategies, knowing that life insurance isn't just about your death benefit, knowing that, there is a way to make more money than, anyone in your circle and still not have to worry about paying taxes if you structure everything correctly. So I think the first step is really understanding how and understanding what is available there and starting to restructure yourself. I mean, Jacqueline was kind enough to look at my stuff and was like, no, this is not how you need to set it up. And basically just revamped how all of my entities were structured, to get the best tax brackets and the best tax incentives for all of that. But so right there. I mean, she's talking about all the wealthy and the rich and all of that, but these strategies can be incorporated for you, but you've got to understand, how do they do it up there? How are they making way more money? They're making more money in a day than I'm making a year, but yet they're paying less taxes than me. How the heck is that? So implementing these strategies is really, the first step is understanding them. So I just wanted to add that in there, Jacqueline, that everything she's talking about isn't just for the rich. It's for anyone that is a U.S. taxpayer. We're all under the same tax code, the tax rules. So these are all benefits for all of us. You just have to know. It's like knowing the rule, that whole don't hate the player, hate the game. This is it. Understand the game, understand the rules. All the same rules apply to all of us. It's just how well do they know them to be on the beneficial side of them.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for echoing that. I mean, that's really why I left corporate America. I saw so many companies, mom and pop shops in 2020 going down. And I mean, we were in the wealthiest cities of the Silicon Valley, and millionaires were handing millions of dollars to these coffee shops to keep them alive because it was like, I have to have my coffee in the morning. You can't go under, right? I mean, like, we're talking first world problems, right? For the millionaires. They're like, no, I have to have my coffee shop. Like, we're going to get a GoFundMe together, right? But that's so Silicon Valley. And I recognize that that's a bubble. But even with all the crowdfunding and all the sourcing, half of the stores in my downtown, Mountain View, were gone. They were gone. They were closed and boarded up. And that really bothered me. And I remember the first conversation as we were headed into COVID with my coach, my kickboxing coach, was, tell me you have life insurance. And he goes, girl, I'm so glad you're talking to me. And I was like, you got it, right? And he's like, I'm good, honey. I'm good, sweetheart. But yes, yes, thank you for asking. He's like, I always know you have my back. And it's like, I just didn't want to see somebody that had worked so hard for a decade building a gym and a family and a community losing his livelihood with two children at home. It's like, so for me it was like, just tell me you got life insurance so that you can survive this and get through this. He's like, honey, I've relied on that thing more times than I care to admit. And I was like, good, because that's how you bulletproof your life. And if my little Filipino kickboxing coach has the tips, like, guys, it's real. Like, this is real. I'm not lying. I'm not telling you something that's not true. um, life insurance is powerful. It's something that you can use to fund your life and bulletproof it financially. It's something that, as self-employed people, you very easily could have a chronic or terminal illness. If you get hit by a car and you're injured, you're going to have a chronic issue potentially, and that is going to need medical attention. And you can leverage your death benefit to a degree and use that to pay your bills, whether it's cancer, hit by a bus, whatever. God forbid, stuff happens. Like, we're not infallible. We're humans. We're not robots. As much as we want to think we're going to live forever, and I don't know, sometimes I just look at people and I'm like, I'm a tax person. I've seen this happen way too many times. So, I think that's one thing I really want to echo home is, the rich don't do anything that's like super fancy or crazy. They have corporations, they park their money up into 401ks, they take the money out of their 401k tax free, penalty free, they create different legal entities with that money, and they're off and rolling. And they refund their businesses over and over and over with the same amount of money that is just going into different accounts. And it's not like, it's insulting coming from someone who didn't come from money. I'm like, this is insulting how egregiously they do it. Like, anyone else, an average 85% of America is going to go and liquidate their 401k, and then they're going to go and buy real estate or a house or something. They don't do that. They keep the privileges, they keep the tax deferral, or the tax free if it's a Roth 401k, and then they make more money. Like, I had a client put $5,000 into a corporation from his 401k, and he literally put $532,000 back in a year and a half later, and it's all tax free. And he went and started another business. And I was like, this is like insulting. Like, it's so insulting, because a normal person would have to pay tax on that $532,000 that they sold, right? Because they're just not structuring their deals properly. And that's where understanding, transactions and people like me, I can help you guys. Like, this is really like why I left corporate America. I'm doing 5 financial reviews right now for people because they need it. Like I have doctors who called me and were like, I want to invest in real estate so I can get cash flow. I'm going to do short-term, Airbnbs. And I quickly pivoted him. I said, look, you have enough money as a doctor. It doesn't make sense. And he's a W-2. So then I had to talk to him about like, okay, in a W-2 land, when you're an employee, we have to structure it differently than if you're over here in self-employed land. But as an employee, guys, I was making, some years over $500,000, and my effective tax rate was 8 to 9%. It was low. It was very, very low. So, you don't have to be burdened because, oh, I'm an employee. No, you don't have to. There's ways we can do it, and there's ways we can shelter you to get you.
Sorry.
I was like, is he trying to say something?
All right, well, I'd like to open it up for any questions. I mean, you covered a lot of, just like basically just open up the fire hydrant. For anyone that doesn't understand some of these, I know it's probably foreign concept and very, like, okay, new strategies or, how do I do this? So I guess I'll ask the first question and be the hopefully the first domino, because I want to hear everyone else, ask their stuff or share something. What would you say would be the first start? Like, would you go life insurance, or would you worry about trying to set up your entity structure? And I guess, answer that as if, hey, I just want to be a passive investor, or I'm going to get active in real estate. What would you say would be the best first step?
Well, passive versus active. Yeah, because there's the real estate rules, right? The real estate professional rules I didn't even touch on for tax purposes. Personally, I would say if you start to get extra cash flow, the first step I would do is life insurance. I would put an executive bonus plan together because that is what's going to start 10xing your life a lot faster than necessarily like flipping. You would have to flip a lot of single family to get the indices, the return you're going to get on the indices. But you also want to make sure that your life insurance is structured properly, because if you don't fund it properly, then it's not going to help you. So it's a tricky beast. It's a very complicated a Rubik's cube, which I'd say 90% of life insurance agents mess up, because it has to do with your age, your health. There's a lot of calculus that goes into it. So if you have the perfect Rubik's cube combination and at least 25 to 50,000 cash flow, I would say go life insurance policy, because in about anywhere from 3 to 5 years, the money you put in, you'll be able to take out and take a loan against it, and then you'll be able to be rocking and rolling with your own infinite banking concept. There are some ways we can structure infinite banking concepts within a month, but that comes with a lot of claws and teeth, and you can only take 80% of the money you put in out. But if we do it right, with a right business, with a right cash flow, we can get you, within 10 years, you have no cash surrender penalties, no more fees, no more penalties in a corporate policy versus an individual policy. You're going to have fees until the day you die or you freeze your cash growth. So it's really making sure that you structure the life insurance properly. And if you guys need that, I can help you guys. And then secondly, I think cash is king. I'm always telling people, like, the sooner you can get your cash on cash down to 100%, the better. You heard yesterday, Wes, like, we want to be turning our money, right? Like that is king. So naturally, some people are going to have to turn the cash to get the wheel. And then once the wheel's going, then go life insurance policy. I'd say that's probably more the traditional route. But yeah, somewhere in there, it's top. Life insurance has to be, especially if you're self-employed, because the last thing you want to have happen is a recession takes you down, or you get sick and that takes you down. You got to go sell property to pay the bills. Like, that's doom and gloom scenario. And that's when you're in a down cycle, when you're selling things to pay bills.
Good.
That'd
So
be my,
life insurance right there. So yeah, and you can help them with that. I think you
yeah.
have the ability to set up policies, don't you?
Yeah, I have a whole financial services team behind me.
Good. So we've posted your LinkedIn, but if you want to put before you leave here in the chat, if you want to have like a direct contact to you for anyone that's interested in life insurance or talking more about that, then if you don't mind sharing the best way that you would like people to contact you in the chat, that'd be good. Okay, I thought I saw a question. I think someone said they raised their hand. Was that Dominique? Did you raise your hand?
I did. I had raised my hand earlier,
Okay.
and first of all, Jacqueline, thank you for your talk. As a fellow insurance broker, yeah, it's interesting how you can talk to somebody about $100 million policy, and they're like, "Yeah, let's do it," and then you'll talk to another client about like how they need 400,000 for their family, for some simpler things, and they're all skeptical about it, right? It's a very weird thing. But one of the questions I had, so when it comes to IBC, that strategy, there a lot of people I find are concerned about quote unquote borrowing their own money, right, or borrowing against their own money. How do you talk to people about, sort of the arbitrage that comes with that and the difference between borrowing from a lender or a bank versus borrowing from themselves?
I mean, it's just math. I have a lot of math presentation slides, which is probably why Wes started this with like, are you going to show some stuff? Because the picture says 1,000 words, right? Um, if if you're borrowing against your life insurance policy at a 1-2% rate, and the banks are going to charge you 5, 8, 12, you're already ahead of the game, and showing them the math on the payments, like this would be your payment back into your life insurance policy if you so choose to, or what they will take against your death benefit if you choose not to make the payments, vis-a-vis uh, with a third party bank. Like I'll tell them, go get a quote from a bank, bring it back, get your pre-approval, let's go through this, and I'll do the math for them, and it's when they see the monthly payments, it's a no-brainer. When I show them that the companies I use don't take the money out of their policy, they take a loan against their death benefit and put a lien against their account, and that their cash is going to continue to grow. If they're earning, on some of these IULs, I have a client, we manage it for him. He's earning 1,000% a month on his IUL, and anywhere from 40 to 1,000, even in a downturn. When you're earning those kind of percentages, you don't want to take the money out. It just doesn't make sense, and so when we show him we're going to take a loan against your death benefit, so if you die, it's just going to reduce down. You're not going to have to affect your cash. Then they're like, oh, awesome. So like I could literally take a 1% loan here and be earning 40% over here. Cool, right? Like that math is very easy. As long as you're showing you're still earning more than you're getting, than you're having to pay back, which in a life insurance policy, you don't have to pay back. That's the beauty of how they bulletproof your life. Um, I have rich clients. They have seven life insurance policies for all different purposes. Some is for cash accumulation, some is for death benefit, some's for infinite banking concepts. We use them for all kinds of different. Some's for their family reunion play fund, their boats. Like I've got funds for everything. So I've seen it all. Airplanes. It's just, I think math. Show people the math. The numbers don't lie. And numbers are not emotional, and that's what I tell people. Don't be emotional about the numbers. They're factual. Like this is the math. Like money is not emotional about you. Don't get emotional about it. It's not going to hug you on your deathbed. You could have all the money. And I know so many really rich people. And I'm like, go get yourself a girlfriend, honey. Like that shit's not going to hug you when you're dead. When you're dying, it's not going to be there. And they're like, shit, I never thought about it that way. Right? Like it's, it's wild. It's really wild, like when money defines people. And that's when I tell people that's the first way you're going to make your fatal mistake and you're going to end up bankrupt, when it defines you. Because as you start to see numbers go down, you start to panic. You sell. You don't want to sell in a down market. You want to sell in an up market. Like you want to buy low, sell high. That's what rich people do, but people panic. It's emotional. 90% of decisions are emotional. You need to learn your emotions. So that's what I mean, these are the conversations that I have with my client, how I talk to you guys, how I talk to my clients. Like, it's, it is what it is, it's just life. You gotta change your mindset. Mindset is 80% of every battle in anything you do. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And I don't argue with people. I'm like, you're right. You're right. You're gonna be broke for the rest of your life. So why are we on this call? You know, what's the point?
I think we got another question. Tucker, I think you were up next. So,
Oh, we got a hand.
Let me do a sound check real quick.
yeah, we can hear you, dear.
All right. Thanks, Wesley. Appreciate all those facts, Jacqueline. So specifically to tax benefits of real estate, can you kind of dig into some examples of, I'm an investor, what does cost segregation mean to me? What does 100% mean versus 80%? And then what are some other tax benefits? It's very much a duty today, so I'm gonna apologize in advance if I have to jump off before, because I'm just sitting in the division parking lot right now. But yeah, I think everybody could benefit from just kind of hearing some examples of how they can see some tax benefits from real estate.
Yeah, so cost segmentation based on the limits that the government sets. So right now, we were at 100 last year. I think we're back down to 80 this year. They started to phase it out. So what does that mean? That means the most total depreciation you can take on a property is 80% of the value. So if you're going to put $100 in, if it meets all of the criteria, place and service rules, all of the requirements, you can get $80 back in a tax deduction. So right there, you buy an asset over a lifetime, you depreciate it over a lifetime, but what it does is it accelerates the deduction to year one. So your cash flow is going to get washed out. It's going to be completely obliterated by this $80.
In a good way, everybody. We're talking wash out your cash flow for tax purposes.
For taxes, like on your tax return, not your actual cash in the bank. So real estate always cash flows if you do it right, and it will always continue to cash flow, but I'm talking on a tax cash basis. So you're going to take, like if you had $100 of cash flow, you know, well, let's say, right, if you do 100 divided by 30, I'm going to try to use simple numbers, you know, 100 divided by 20, we'll do 20 as the tax depreciable base. So you're going to have $5, you know, every year. So if you're taking an $80 deduction, but you have $5 coming in your cash flow, which is taxable in your tax land, now you have a negative $75. What happens with that negative $75? If you structure yourself properly, it offsets all your other income, like my wage income when I was working. And then I don't have to worry about paying taxes on my wages. Now I get a huge fat refund check when I file my tax return because my employer is obligated to withhold by law. So now I've zeroed out my tax bill. And that's everything. Like that's life. That's when you start to put yourself in an up cycle, when you start to wash away your taxes with tax loss carry forward, with taxes that you would otherwise have to carry forward until you earn income to make that 75 go down to zero. So if you don't earn $75 to offset that 75 that you didn't use in year one, then you're never going to be able to take it down. You're never going to pay taxes, which means you're not in a business, you're now in a hobby. So the point of all of this is to take it so that as your cash flow is coming in that's taxable, you want to offset it with taxes and you want to keep yourself in a tax loss carry forward to a degree that you can manage it and offset it against all your other wage income or other income like crypto money or, you know, other investments on the stock portfolio, you know, whatever it is, your bonus checks. So that's basically, I hope that answered his entire question. He just dropped off. But,
yeah. No, I appreciate it. Adam, I think you were up next, sir.
Yeah. Hey guys, good to see some familiar faces in here. The question that I have is a little bit nuanced. I'm trying to not make it as like a broad question as possible, but it's essentially comparing the differences and setting yourself up structure wise in business. Because I know that there's a way that you set up yourself. You structure it to where you protect your own assets, but how do you do the same kind of thing where if you're, say, managing a fund, like a syndication or something along those lines? What are the differences between those two? What do they look like?
The difference between managing a fund and what, just to make sure I'm on the same page?
setting up yourself, like if you were going to invest personally and protect yourself, your assets, that kind of stuff, versus protecting other people's money?
Yeah, good question. So this is why in syndications or funds, you usually see multiple legal entities. They're never just one. You have your capital money, the LPs in one, and then you usually have your GP, and depending on how much and what you're doing, sometimes the property will be in a different one. That's when you start to get into the $1 billion range. You're going to start to separate everything. And so why do you separate these? So LPs are only liable, they're limited partners. So they're only liable to the amount of money put into the project. So God forbid this thing goes south and gets bankrupt. They're only going to lose the money they put in. Nobody can come after them. So we isolate them to kind of double and triple down on it to protect them. GPs have their own, because the GP is what's going to be on the hook, that they're going to come after you. And so this is why, as I invest into a GP, I have a separate legal entity that buys into, so I have double legal protection. They can only take what's in that legal entity. They can't go and keep going up and piercing all the way through. So I know that I'm limited to this box. That's it. And whatever is in this box is all I'm going to lose, and I'll bankrupt the entity and move on, and Donald Trump style. Like, I don't really care. So that's really why people use so many different legal entities, and so many people isolate everything, so that we do the tax planning so that you have one consolidated entity, and then underneath you have all of your legal entities. And that consolidated entity usually only has one employee, you or your wife or spouse or whomever. And you keep that clean. That's just like the management company. And then you put everything down below, and that invests into accordingly. So that's how most people that are self-employed in the big corporate space are structured. And then some of them have trusts on top for anonymity purposes and blah, blah, blah. That's a whole nother
All right.
thing.
Thank you for that. We got two more, and then we're probably going to be out of time. So Ethan, and then I think Brandon will take our last question. So go ahead, Ethan. Oh, where'd you go? There he is. You're muted, sir. He might be busy. Ethan, are you still available?
Oh, he's on the phone.
Oh, he's on the call. We'll let
Hey guys,
Brandon.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. Thank you
Okay.
so much for the presentation. Jacqueline, I was just curious, you mentioned a bank to pledge the life insurance policies to. What banks do you like using, and what are their rates now? I used to use Investors Bank in New Jersey, but then they sold their portfolio to some random bank in Atlanta, and the servicing has been terrible. So I'm looking for a new bank.
We can take this offline. There's a couple. Okay. The policies that I buy, they do their own banking. Okay. So we can take it offline. There is one other one, M&M, that I use for whole life policies, but I try to stay away from whole life now that FFIULs are in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, he's got some good songs too. Brandon.
Yes. If you purchased a property in 2021 with 100%, I'm sorry, 21 with 100% bonus depreciation, and you know your exit strategy is typically to sell it in 3 to 5 years, but let's say you sell it year 2, what is the damage in terms of recapture from the IRS in terms of that bonus depreciation you took in year 1, and then what, if any, what are the ways to mitigate that?
Yeah, so you're right, there is recapture that is taxable, but that's where having the tax loss carry forward should offset that, and managing all of your money. That there is going to be some leakage on the sale, and that's where, you know, you can easily take some of the overflow money and park it. We can back into the numbers and park it into something that's tax deductible, like a retirement account of some sort, whether it's an IRA, 401k, or we can put it into, you know, a tax-free life insurance policy. That's tax deductible. And we can do it all kinds of different ways. We're going through and saving a client $300,000 on their health insurance plan for their employees, because they have 50 or more employees. We're parking all of that savings directly into an executive bonus plan for them, because you don't have to give executive bonus plans to your employees, but you have to give retirement accounts. So it's kind of a case by case basis how I would look at it. But yeah, you'd put it in something tax deductible for sure.
So you should basically treat it like just about anything else to mitigate any profits.
Yeah, or you would reinvest it and go get another building.
Property. Yeah.
Go reinvest your money and get another building.
Cool.
That is a good question, because I think a lot of people that bought in 2020 and, kind of tailoring into 2021, I know for ours, the goal is right now is with the rising interest rates, it doesn't make any sense to refinance and hold it on. It ate up all the cash flow. So you might as well just look at, we're trying to get occupancy and CapEx complete and get that property as a good NOI, peaking that NOI and looking at exiting, closer to probably third quarter this year. So, hey, we're planning on holding this for 5. We already took all the bonus depreciation for last year. So, yeah. But and I think more and more people are going to see that. So that's a good question, Brandon, for what's kind of happening going into this recession. What's going to happen?
I've gotten a lot of that same question from investors who invested, like, what happens with recapture? And the general consensus is like, it doesn't really matter that much in terms of, like, you compare the profits you make to like what they're going to tax you on, which is capped at a certain amount. I think it's like 25% or something, or 15%. And with that, you can mitigate that just by, like what you just said, just roll that into something else.
Yeah, but as recapture goes down, there's going to be bleed, right? Because you're no longer getting the 100% or close to, you're starting to bleed out. Like, we got our cost report back and it's like 31% year one. Like, that's tragic. That's tragic. So, you have to manage that. That's something you manage, that's something you look at all the time. And, you want to stay on top of, because you're going to have to pull other levers. Like I have 4 levers I can pull in my company in December so that I don't have to pay the tax.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, we're wrapping up at the end of this. I appreciate everyone showing up. I hope someone took something away. If you haven't been keeping an eye on the chat, there's been a lot of people, posting their LinkedIn and contact information, along with Jacqueline posted hers. So the biggest point of this is to learn. The second point is to network. The theme is military and patriots. So, we're all wanting to come together and really scale up our portfolio, scale up our capabilities. So, but doing it effectively and strategically is key. So I hope y'all took something away from that. I'm going to let Sarah share something really quick. If y'all don't know, she's the one that actually makes everything look pretty, because obviously this isn't. So any of that, I'll let her share some stuff real quick before we log off. But before I do that, I want to say thanks, Jacqueline, for coming on and answering all the questions and sharing all of the wealth of knowledge there. And yeah, it's been good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's complicated, so I try to keep it simple for you guys. So if you have questions, let me know.
Absolutely. I want to encourage everybody real quick before we wrap up in the next 5 minutes. Go drop your contact information, and there is a way to save the chat. So if you open up the chat right beside the smiley face, there's a ... Click that and you can save it. It'll put it on your computer so that you can go back and connect with people offline. That's the goal. We want people to be making money, making connections, and reaching out to the right people to kind of fill those spots. Like, for example, Wes and I, we are always looking for people looking to park some money in real estate. We're also looking for co-sponsors. We've got deals in the pipeline. We want to work with you. And I want to invite everybody to join the Military and Patriots Investment Group on Facebook. If you haven't done so already, we want to open up that conversation and continue these high-level communications. Jacqueline, I believe you are in that group, correct? So if you don't have a means to connect with her, if you can't save the chat right now, you can reach out to her there or connect with her on LinkedIn. So drop your info there, save the chat. Next week, who do we have coming up, Wes?
You mean next month?
Or next month, sorry, next month.
Yeah, I guess we have to get that finally approved, but we'll release that in the group chats. we had a lot of mess ups with the signing up through Facebook. It was giving us some glitches, so we just made it an Eventbrite. So that'll be that. But we are posting that on LinkedIn. We are posting that in the Military Patriots investment group on Facebook. And feel free to share that to everyone if you know of anyone, whether they're veteran, military, or just a good old American investor, or really any investor at all that want to pursue real estate. This group is for everyone that's willing to learn and share, and we'd like to have them. So feel free. So that's really it. Yep, there's the post for the group there, and that's really it. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their month going into the weekend. And yes, we've got some deals. I think everyone's got deals in the pipeline that I know of, and really trying to get this year off with the bang. I know Jacqueline and I are looking at a beautiful development project in DFW, trying to get that thing finally going, this way instead of this way. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. As for y'all that know me, I do a lot of multifamily, now moving into a lot of self-storage, but still looking at, all things commercial. So hit me up if you got something you want to talk about. If you're wanting to talk, tax or life insurance, Jacqueline also has what she calls the Exit Rich right? Exit Rich course. Yes. So she can have that to go over a lot more strategies there. So feel free. Brandon just posted a link for actually tomorrow for veterans in real estate. So that'll be good there. And yeah, that's good. So feel free anytime in the group. If you've got an event or you've got something, I'm not like some of the other groups where it's like, oh, don't advertise. No, please self-promote yourself. Put that out there. If you've got someone that's doing something big and you want to kind of get the word out, as long as it's, for positive gain, please go. No crazy scams, no pyramid schemes. But yes, let's get some, if somebody gets in there and starts talking Amway, I'm probably going to delete it. But let's get some real estate stuff going on in there. Let's share where the good events are. I've had just as much success from virtual as I have in-person events, but I do like to attend both and see where people are actually at and kind of see their faces, shake their hands, all that good stuff. So
I'm going to plug my buddy Anthony, who's to my right. He does a weekly meeting, and it's bomb.com. I've made some amazing connections from joining his live virtual group. So thank you, Anthony. We appreciate that. So make sure that you're out there networking in all of the different groups that are available to you. It's amazing what just dropping your contact information will do to building your network.
Yeah. I also want to say, if you guys ever have a deal that is really good, I did my first hand at capital raising this round, and I have just people who are going to buy a bunch of stuff. I think my people are a little bit too big of investors. So if you guys ever have good deals, send them my way. I can try and move them for you. If you guys want to make some quick cash flow, I've got 3 family offices that are committed to looking at all the deals I send to them. So don't be shy.
All right, everyone, have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.